Good morning. Sorry about that. Had the audio on right away. Hope everyone's doing well today. Hope you've had a wonderful week. And we are getting close to Valentine's Day, so I hope you're ready to talk about love. We're this morning perfect love, and that idea that the Bible gives us of what that means. So if you're on YouTube or Facebook, if you will, give me a quick hello this morning. Let me know you're on. Let me know it's working, that you can actually hear me. Um, a little bit of a delay here getting started. I think I've got everything set up now. If you are watching this video and you don't know who New Hebrew Missionary Baptist Church is, let me encourage you to stay to the end, or fast forward if you want to, if you're watching the replay. And I'll tell you a little bit more about who we are and how you can get in touch with us. We'd love to communicate with you if we could. All right. Hi, Miss Judy. Thanks for letting me know you're here. I wanted to make sure everything was working before I jumped right into this morning, so appreciate you letting me know you're here. Hey, Carol, good morning. Thank you. All right. Glad to know it's working. Had a little bit of internet trouble last night, at least. It was really slow, so I was worried this morning, but right now it looks like we got a good connection, so we're going to keep moving on. So this is that time of year, Valentine's, February. You see lots of hearts, lots of cards that say love, lots of candy. Definitely a time of chocolates. And you look at the aisle of the store, and it has just kind of row after row of love candy. Things in the heart shape, things in red and pink, and saying I love you, or be mine, be my Valentine. And so I thought we'd kind of, this week and next week at least, talk a lot about that idea, that concept of love, and really look at it from a biblical perspective. And as I was wanting to get into it this week, I was looking at what would be a good thing to cover in light of that. I don't know. I was a little surprised at the direction the Lord sent me, and I think you might be surprised as well, because this is your typical love topic this morning. Miss Judy says yes, all the fattening stuff. That's right. Valentine's candy is all the fattening stuff, isn't it? There's not very many healthy options when it comes to Valentine's candy. Hey, Will, good morning. Thanks for letting me know you're here as well. All right. So, yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I mentioned before, I like to try to get things going quickly, so the front of the video is not kind of a slow start, and yet here I am rambling on anyway. But we're going to jump right into this morning's passage, and I've really kind of kept it short this week. Well, I say that every time, and then it doesn't end up being short, but shorter this week, because I want us to really focus on the one topic, the one overall topic that Jesus is really focusing on in this passage. So let's just jump right into the text, and we will look at it verse by verse this morning. In this passage, Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 to 48, Jesus is giving what we refer to as the Sermon on the Mount. And he's given a lot of hard teaching. He's basically showing the people that they can't live up to his righteousness on their own. And he's challenging them, saying, this is what I expect out of people that follow me. And so he comes to this part at the end of chapter 5. He's already talked to them previous to that about retaliation, and how they're not to retaliate against those that do wrong to them. He's already talked to them about lots of other topics. And he's kind of given them his view of how things how our lives ought to look. And then here in verse 43, he gets to a part where he talks about loving. And he says, in verse 43, you've heard that it's been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. And so he's kind of starting off with kind of what do they know, and he's going to change it to here's what I say. And that's what he does throughout that whole Sermon on the Mount. He says, people say this, well, I'm saying this. And so that's where he's at here, and he says, you've heard, love your enemy, hate your neighbor. Now, the Old Testament law didn't state that. It wasn't something that was taught there in the law, but it was obviously what people had kind of built out of that. They knew to love their neighbor, and they therefore kind of translated that into hate our enemies, hate those that are different from us, hate those that don't believe like us. And he says that's what you've heard. Verse 44, he says, but I say unto you, love your enemies, Bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. You know what? To me, that's the most challenging thing he could have ever said. You know, it would have been something for Jesus to say, love your neighbor and put up with your enemy. Tolerate your enemy. But he doesn't say that. He says, I want you to love your enemy. He says that love here, he's showing again that love isn't, for a Christian, isn't just an emotion. It's not just something we feel. You know, that's what Valentine's is oftentimes about, that feeling kind of love. Oh, this is the person I love, I'm in love, that sort of thing. And we know that, love can be an emotion, but love is also action. And throughout the whole New Testament, we're taught that we're to love by our actions, by our deeds. Love is to be a verb for us. It's to be something we do. And here he says, I want you to do that to your enemies, to the ones you would consider as opposed to you, as against you. And he goes on to describe what those enemies might do. He says, bless them that curse you. He says, those that are going to try to curse you, to try to put you down, to try to wish ill will on you, he says, bless them. Hope for their good. Hope that they find Christ. And he says, do good to them that hate you. He says, those you look at and say, that person, they just can't stand me. They hate me. He says, okay, go do something good for them. Go show them love in a way that lives it out. And then he says, pray for them which despitefully use you. He says, you're going to have some that just, they use you in any way they can. And they persecute you. He says, you're going to have some people that they're just, they try to get anything they can out of you. And in the process, are making things difficult on you. So I want you to pray for them. So we see that love is lived out in hoping for God's blessing and asking for God to bless them, and doing good for them, and in praying for them. Now, as I was looking at this passage, it really struck me, with where we're at today in our society, that oftentimes as Christians, it's easy to feel persecuted. It's easy to feel mocked. Our society today definitely has, in some ways, not all across the board, but in many ways, likes to make fun of Christianity. It's kind of, it feels like sometimes like that's the only religion you can make fun of these days is Christianity. And it's easy to kind of feel persecuted or whatever. But here, Jesus is saying, I don't want you to focus on it, even if you feel persecuted, even if you feel like you're being targeted and you're the one that is being hated. He says your reaction to that is to be love. Is to take action that could be defined as love. And that's one of the hardest things I could imagine for a Valentine's Day to think about. Is I wish we were here. If we were in person, I'd probably give you all one of those Valentine cards like you had in elementary school with the little small shape, and you put had to and from. You put somebody's name on it, and from. And you put your name on all of them, and those of you that are at least my age and older, I don't know if they do it still today or not, but at least my age and older, you'd spend the night before writing out your name on all these different cards and making one to everybody in your class. You could pass one around the next day, and you had all these little cards that said, be my Valentine, or I think you're great, or whatever the card said. And I'd probably hand some of those out, and then ask you to put on there, someone that you think hates you, someone that you think is different from you, and maybe it's not even someone that is you're working with daily or whatever. Maybe it is, but just in general, people that you think don't like you, and then you have to flip it over and look at what it says there, and change that to be, I hope that God blesses you. I hope that that God's love is on your life, and to have to look at that and say, okay, this is my Valentine's card. I'm going to give it to the person that I think dislikes me the most. That'd be kind of a tough assignment, wouldn't it? I think it was always funny in elementary school, you always had to give a card to everybody. And in fact, they'd usually have make these little boxes the days ahead, and you had to put your name on it. People go by and just put all the cards in different people's boxes. And there was inevitably people in the class that I don't like so-and-so. And, the thing was, you did not give them a card. You just gave them the card you thought was, not the best of all the cards you had. And that was kind of how people would deal with the ones in class they didn't like, or the ones they didn't get along with, or whatever the situation was. that I can't even remember elementary school so much what the drama was about, but there was inevitably some drama that so and so didn't like this person or that person, and but you still give them a card, and that's kind of the idea here is we're going to look for the people that. Miss Bridget says they're doing cards on Friday. Awesome. So they do still do that. I'm so glad to hear that. I was kind of afraid it was a lost art, that maybe they didn't get to do that so much anymore. But glad to know that. Friday is the Friday. Next Sunday's the 14th. So yeah, that'd be the Friday before Valentine's Day. So awesome. So glad to hear that they're still doing cards. But yeah, so as you go into the stores and you look at all the Valentine's candy and you look at the little, especially the little pack of cards you could give out at school, I want you to think about that for a moment. Think about the people that you think don't like you, the people you think persecute you, the people that use you, the people that you feel like make fun of you, the way you live and the way you think and the way you believe. Think about those people and look at the card and say, you know what? I want to bless those people. I want to find a way to reach out to those people and do something good for them. I want to pray for them, and I want them to find Christ. And that's really the big challenge for us, is to be able to turn that and say, you know what, I'm going to do this for you. And I was thinking about social media a lot of times right now. There's so much back and forth, especially with people that disagree on political views, people that disagree on political views that overlap with religious views and all this. And it's easy to kind of get into a battle of this person versus that person, or this ideology versus that ideology. And it can sometimes feel like, we're standing up for what's right or whatever. We also have to back that up and look and say, okay, am I still doing it the way Jesus said? Am I still, if this person is opposed to me, if they're opposite of me, therefore they're my enemy, in my view, then he says I've got to learn to find a way to love them. I've got to learn to find a way to bless them, to get them into God's presence, to get them into relationship with God, to show them love by my actions, not just saying I love you, but doing something that shows them I love them. And he goes on in verse 45 to say, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. He's saying the reason I want you to do this is I'm not asking you to do something that's impossible. He says, I'm just asking you to do exactly what Father does. I'm asking you to be like him. That ought to really strike at our hearts to say, that ought to be our desire more than anything else, is to be like Christ, to be like Father, and to be able to show the kind of love that God does. And he says, that even God blesses those who aren't following him at the time. He sends the rain on the evil and the good. He makes the sun to shine on the evil and the good. He sends the rain on the just and the unjust. Romans 5 tells us that we were enemies of God when he came and died for us, when he justified us. And that's the kind of love he had. We were his enemy, and he said, you know what? These people don't know me like they should. They don't know me like they were created to know me. They may not even have any interest in me. They may not want me at this point. But I want that relationship with them, and I'm going to go out of my way to make a way for us to have that relationship restored. That's what he did on the cross when he died, to take my sin and to say, here, I'll pay the price for your sin, so now we can have a relationship. He did that for each of us. He says that's the kind of love that Father has. Not the kind that says, okay, be nice to me and then I'll be nice to you. Miss Judy says she remembers a card had suckers in them, mostly red ones. I remember those too. I used to like the cards that were candy related. That she'd have those suckers and then the little piece of paper that went on the stick and around the sucker there. I remember those as well. Those were really good. But he's saying the reason I'm asking you to do this is because I want you to be like Father. I want you to duplicate what he's done. And actually what he is doing at the moment Jesus is saying that. Remember, Jesus is here, Sermon on the Mount. He's walking on this earth. He hasn't died yet, but he's here walking among these people he created, these people he's trying to redeem, these people he's trying to offer forgiveness of their sins. And he's walking among them saying, God is doing this very thing right now. He is looking at people that are opposed to him, people that don't know him, people that are his enemies. And he's saying, I'm reaching out to you. I'm sending love to you in the form of Jesus. He says we need to do that because that's what Father does. If we want to be like him, then that's the way we love. That in itself is a harsh requirement. If we want to call ourselves Christians, then we got to be able to love like this. We got to be able to love those who hate us, those who are opposed to us, those who would love to do us ill. And that's what he wants us to do. He says, "For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same?" He says it doesn't require anything special to be able to love people that love you. It doesn't require anything special to love people that are nice to you. It doesn't require anything special to love people that have a special connection to you. He says anybody can do it. He said even the evil person you can imagine loves those that are close to them. You ever think about that? You know, whoever you might think of as kind of one of the most evil people throughout history that maybe killed a lot of people and did all these evil things. You know, you think of the Hitlers and the people like that you got to think of, wow, how evil can you get? Even those people had people in their lives that they loved and cared about. And he's saying that anybody can do that. And he says the publicans here, he's talking about the sinners, those that they would view as not trying to do what's right. He says even they can love people that love them. He says, if you salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans do also? He says, if you're only going to associate with those who are like you, those that make you feel good, those that make you feel loved, that's the same thing the world does. You don't need God's empowering. You don't need the Holy Spirit to guide you, to give you the strength to do it, just to be around people that are like you. And that's what we have a lot today. We have a lot of just echo chamber type stuff. We want to be around people that echo the same thing I say, and just be away from people that don't say the same thing I do. That's not what we're called to do. We're called to be the salt, and we're called to be a light in the world. We're called to be in the midst of all sorts of things and shining the love of Jesus to that world. We're called to be missionaries. We're called to be ambassadors, to go into that different, into something that's apart from us, and then shine that light. And that's what he's saying here. He says anybody can love those that love them. Anybody can love those that are special to them, but only those who know Christ, only those that know God, only His children that can learn to love like Him can have that kind of love that says, I'm going to love those that don't even love me. In fact, I'm going to love those that hate me. In verse 48 is a really tough one. He says, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Now this really ups the bar, doesn't it? When you use the word perfect, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure I could do this. I know I certainly am not perfect. But the good news is here that word perfect is one that means complete. And it's one that just means nothing missing. All the parts are ready. If you have a machine, it's ready for use. There's nothing missing, nothing lacking. You don't need anything else. And so that's what he's saying is, I want you to be complete, even as your Father which is in heaven is complete. Again, he says the motivation for us doing this is to be like Father. The motivation for us loving those who don't love us, the motivation for us being different from the world around us is saying, you know what, I'm going to love you no matter what you think of me, no matter what you do to me. I'm going to show you the love of the Father. Is that of the Father. It's duplicating Him. It's trying to mirror Him or mimic Him. And so that's the way he says, I want you to be complete. He says that's part of being complete. You know, if we learn to love at a young age, it doesn't take long for a child to really bond with its parents, and that special love that exists there. That happens really quickly. And then as we grow older, we learn to love others. We learn to love maybe our brothers and sisters. Sometimes that may take a little longer for some children, or maybe they go through phases where it's like you wonder if they really love each other when they're in those 4 to 10 range where they seem to fight a lot of times. And then it kind of gets back to normal. Or maybe the teenage years, different families are different. But you always have those times where they learn to love other people, that they're part of their family. And then they learn to love other people, friends. They learn to love those that they meet at school and have relationships there that are friendships and would be considered love and someone they can relate to. And then we kind of learn to love. We kind of grow in our ability to love. And that's what he's saying here is that as Christians, our ability to love ought to grow as we grow. And as we become more and more like fathers, we become more and more complete, that piece of the puzzle that needs to come in place to know that we're finally making this thing what God wants us to be, is that part of loving our enemies. You go back to that verse. I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, on the show American Idol. I don't know if they still have that show out or not. But it was popular for a long time. Obviously, everybody's heard of American Idol, at least the show where people come out and sing. And you had Simon Cowell was one of the judges, and he was known for being extremely harsh. And you had different judges from other seasons and things like that. That's kind of what people remembered the most. But you may remember one year, I heard it referred to as, I don't remember now. My numbers get lost in my head. But one of the seasons, there was a lady on there named Mandisa. Mandisa Hunley. And you may know Mandisa as a contemporary Christian music artist now. If you didn't watch American Idol, you may not know that she got her start on American Idol, and I think she got up into the top 10 that year. If I remember correctly, I did some research on this story because I thought it was such an interesting story. I just can't remember all the details, but I enjoy Mandisa's music. I enjoy hearing her speak at times because she has a real heart for God and a real heart for helping people. And but anyway, when she got her start on American Idol, and one thing that's well known about Mandisa now is she's had a struggle over the years with weight. And she was, I guess you would say, kind of large when she went in for her audition. And she went in and she sang. All three judges that were there that year loved her and said, "Oh, yeah, you're going to get the next step, you're going to go to the second phase of this." And so she goes out. She's excited. Well, she was leaving the room, those auditions. If you remember the way American Idol works, they have these auditions at first where they just kind of come in and sing without music. They only do a little bit, and then if they get the judge's approval, they come back and do a little bit longer. Then if they get the judge's approval, then they get sent to some special location to do a show where the actual contest starts. And of course, I'm telling you all this. You probably know this more better than I do. But anyway, just trying to explain it in case someone is not familiar with American Idol. And so she sings. They say, "Wow, that's great. You're moving to the next round." And she's leaving the room. And Simon Cowell made this really hard remark. He says, "Do we have a bigger stage this year?" And it's just kind of one of those really harsh things. And he's kind of known for that. That's kind of his, I guess, thing on the show. And it was, she was kind of walking out, as it said, but it aired on the program, and which kind of shows you a lot about how the directors and people like that feel about people's feelings. They're going to air anything, whether it's hurtful to someone or not. But anyway, so he makes that statement about her weight. And says something else. I can't remember exactly the rest of the exchange. Something about the other judge is about she has this Frenchy vibe, and he says no, more like fries. And so he's kind of making a joke, and you can imagine for Mandisa when she heard that was hurtful, that was painful. In fact, she was describing it later to a publication, and she says it was my worst fear come true because it was the biggest struggle of my life because it's something I feel so vulnerable about. For him to have said that and for it to air on national television, I was devastated. And she said a bunch of her friends gathered around her and began to pray for her. And she said they began to pray for Simon. And she said she had friends that kind of came around. And she said it was at that point that she kind of realized that it was about more than just her and her hurt feelings. It's interesting because, the next round of what they do is they do some songs and they get to come in and find out whether they've made it to that next stage where they actually get to fly somewhere and be part of one of the shows. And as she comes in for that show, as she's getting ready to come in, she says, she's in that the way Mandisa described it, she said, it's funny because the producers were setting me up. She says, as soon as we got there, we were all in a room, and the producer said, this episode is all about reaction. They were filming everybody's reaction to whether or not they were able to move on to the next round. Some people are going to get rejection here. We have to watch, how do they handle that. Some are going to get here good news. They're moving on. And she says, then they looked directly at me. They said, if Simon says something mean to you, you tell him off. You let him have it. He said, we know you're going to tell him off, so you just say whatever you want to, and we can bleep out anything that's not TV friendly. That was their direction to her. That was their, advice to her in terms of going in here. She says she remembers thinking when they were saying that, well, I've got something to say, but it's not going to be what they're thinking it's going to be. And if you didn't see that, the interaction is really kind of amazing. She walks into the room and she sits down and kind of makes a joke about, not having a bigger stage, maybe having a bigger chair or something like that. And you can kind of see, Simon's kind of reacting to it, realizing that she's still thinking about what he said. And she says, she turns to Simon immediately and says, Simon, you hurt me. It was painful. It really was. But I want you to know that I have forgiven you. You don't need someone to apologize in order to forgive somebody. I figured that if Jesus could die die so that all my sins can be forgiven, I could certainly extend that same grace to you. That's how she responded to someone hurting her. Something that she later talked about was a lifelong problem, a lifelong thing that had given her shame and had given her issues with her self-image. And here he, on national TV, attacks that one thing, trying to be funny, and yet she turns around and says, "You know what? But I'm going to forgive you for that. I'm not going to get angry at you." That is, I believe, what Jesus is describing here as showing love to those who have hurt us, showing love to those who have tried to despitefully use us, and so that was her reaction. If you watch the video, and if you watch it, you can find, I don't remember how I found it, but something about Mandisa forgives Simon or something like that. If you find that video on YouTube, it'll show the whole little clip from the show. But at that point, Simon actually says, I'm humbled. And then they get up and he gives a hug. It had a noticeable impact on him that she was able to respond the way she did. I don't know how, she got to that point in her life. Somewhere along the line, a parent or a Sunday school teacher or a friend or a pastor or somebody in her life had helped show her what it means to live love to people around us, whether they're nice to us or whether they're not, whether they agree with us or whether they don't, whether they're like us or whether they're entirely different from us, whether we like how they are or we hate how they are. He says, regardless of all that, we learn to love those people. And, and that's how we learn to practice that Christ-like love in the midst of a persecuting world. In 1 Corinthians 13, we have that passage that talks about, love is patient, love is kind, the great love passage that is often described there. It talks about all the different things that love is and how love ought to look. As you get towards the end of that, in verse 11 of chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, Paul writes, "When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things." He's talking there about how we mature in our love, how we learn to love differently as we mature. And that's 1 Corinthians 13 is about mature love, about love that has learned to love beyond itself. That's what we're called to do. We're called to love our enemies, to bless them that curse us, to do good to them that hate us, to pray for them that despitefully use us. You see, I see a lot lately about, I mentioned before about how easy it is to feel like persecuted as Christians, to feel like society is kind of turning against Christianity and making fun of Christianity and all of that. But you know what? We're not called to be victims. We're not called to cry out and go, "Oh, look how much you're persecuting us." The Bible says we've been made more than conquerors. Our reaction isn't to cry foul and say, "Oh, stop doing this." This is our reaction when people mistreat us, when people despise us, when people hate us for our beliefs, is to love them. Our reaction is to show them love in action, not just in word. It's to bless them. It's to hope that God blesses them and that God is a part of their life in some way and somehow, either now or in the future. It's to do good to them, to find ways to serve them and to help them. And it's to pray for them. Can we do that? That's your challenge this week, is to make those imaginary cards you're going to hand out. And then think about different people or ideas or ideologies that seem opposed to you and think, how can I show them that I love them? You know what? I think that'll change what we see on social media if we really did that. I think it would change how we act in the office place and the workplace sometimes if we really did that. I think our whole society would change if only the Christians, even just the Christians, were willing to say, you know what? I'm going to love people that don't even love me. I'm going to do good for those that try to mistreat me. And I'm going to show them God's love through my actions. That ought to be what Valentine's is about. It's not about falling in love and this, that, or the other. This is kind of fun to talk about, and we'll talk about some of that aspect probably next week, depending on which direction it goes. But all that is kind of that's the juvenile part of love, if I want to put it that way. The part we grow into early. This is the mature part of love. This is the perfect love, the complete love. The love that says, now I can even love those that don't love me. That's our assignment this week. Go love someone that doesn't love us. Go pray for someone that you think can't stand you or your beliefs or who you are. Go pray for them. Go do something for them. And watch God work, because that's what He likes to do. I hope you've had a great week. I was trying to make sure I didn't miss any comments while I was going on there. I hope you have a great week. I hope as you lead up to Valentine's, you do spend a lot of time thinking about the love of Father, how much He loves you, also how much we can send that love to other people. And if I can do anything for you this week, don't hesitate to ask. You can reach out to me, Facebook message, whatever works best for you, phone call, text. And I hope you all have a great week, and I love you all. If you're watching this video and you do not know who New Hebrew Missionary Baptist Church is, let me give you a little bit of information about it. I'm Brother Chuck. I'm the pastor here, and we are a small country church on the east side of West Blockton, Alabama. If you're familiar with the West Blockton area and you know where the baseball fields are, you can turn right there in front of the baseball fields onto Bishop Ridge Road. Go about 5.5 miles. You'll see our sign again. You can turn left onto Griffintown Road. When you go up the hill and around the bend, you'll see our sign, the 3 crosses, and our sanctuary nestled in the woods. We currently have online services Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. right here on YouTube or Facebook. We also have an on-site service in our sanctuary at 11 a.m. We have an evening service on Sundays, 6 p.m. that we call Sunday Fun Day. It's games and Bible study. We'd love to have you join us for one of those. If you want more information about us, you can find our website, newhebronbaptist.com. Send us an email, Facebook message, Instagram, YouTube message, whichever works best for you, however you like to communicate. We'd love to hear from you. If we can help you in any way, just let us know.